and I am your host, John. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the hard times. As always, I'll start this episode with a quick update on behind the scenes. It got a little bit hectic the last kind of week or so. Got caught up in kind of day-to-day life and everything else, running around with little one and sorting all that kind of stuff out. So I fell a little bit behind in terms of recording, but a couple of hours of like focus and work and now like get back on track, that's fine. As I should still be fine to keep on schedule for uploading for Sunday. It's more just kind of my own pressure on myself where it's just like, oh, you need to have it in the bank. I like being ahead of schedule opposed to on schedule or behind schedule. But other than that, things are pretty good. I'm getting in the routine of kind of having 2 episodes waiting to upload, so I've got about a week leniency. And with living a hectic life, that kind of gives me a bit of wiggle room to kind of do things in the meantime, fall behind a little bit, and then catch up. So if you're trying to launch any of your own projects, understand that it might be hectic at the beginning, but you can kind of learn to manage that and kind of build yourself some wiggle room where you need to as and when. Sometimes you'll fall behind, but you just pick back up and carry on when you can. It's not always going to be go, go, go. Sometimes you're going to drop the ball, but when you pick it back up again, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not about how many times you go down, it's about how many times you get back up. It's pretty simple. And that's probably quite a nice tie into the start of the episode of the hard times. This is the second time for me trying to record this. The first time I was going to title it The Hardest Thing You've Been Through. But while I was editing that footage, it kind of dawned on me that not only was I not articulating myself properly, that's a poor way to kind of encompass what I was trying to say, because the hard times are always going to come. There's always going to be times in your life where you face difficulty, no matter where you are, whether you be young, old, whatever, it doesn't matter. No matter what point of your life that you're in, you're going to potentially face hard times. And it can take many different forms, financially, relationships, health, you name it, that you can fall on hard times in it. So trying to talk about it as if the hard times are something that you just go through and that's it, I think was a poor way to go about it. So hopefully this time I do it better. But it is incredibly hot at the minute. I'm recording at night, but we're in the middle of the heat wave in a minute in the UK, so I may be a bit sweaty for this one. I apologise, but hey ho, we must push on. So there's always going to be hard times in life, and they're going to sometimes come out of left field, and sometimes you're going to know when it's coming. But each hard time you go through, there is going to be things that you learn in there that if you have the self-awareness to kind of capitalize on, you can add them to your toolbox of life skills, and you can use that to propel you, not hinder you. You can use the different things that you learn through difficulty and through struggle in order to push you into the good times and further. There's always going to be the ups and downs in life. When people ask me how I am, if I can't say that I'm great, then I say riding a wave of life. Because to me, that's the perfect analogy. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, but all of us are just trying to stay afloat. And it's so easy to forget that everybody is going through that. Everybody's just trying to survive, just trying to find their happiness and go on their life mission. So you're never gonna be able to say like, I'm never gonna see hard times again. You can see hard times in many different forms. So just try to learn from the hard times rather than dawn on them or feel sorry for yourself, because it's always going to happen, and it's not just happening to you. Hard times happen to everybody. Difficulties happen to everybody. So learn what you can from your difficulties and try to move on. Again, it's while talking about it, and especially talking about it solo, it seems like an oversimplification. But it really does come down to the fact that you can't change what is going to happen to you. You can't change the things around life. Sorry, I need a quick break for a mop up. Sorry, it's like being in a sauna. So you can't control the things in life. Like, you can control how you react to them, but you can't control the things that happen in life. There's so many variables, so many cogs turning, that you can't have that much control. Like, I like it when I'm driving down the road and I see like a derelict building that's got a smashed window or some graffiti on it. At some point in time, somebody stopped and smashed that window or done that graffiti. Like, that is there for a reason. There was a moment in time where somebody's actions caused that to be there. Now, some people will go past that graffiti and they'll see it as art or they'll see it as vandalism. That's each person's perspective. But there was still a moment in time that wasn't there, and then there was a moment in time that it is there. And that always fascinates me. Like, somebody may see that building and they don't see the graffiti at all. They see the potential for a home for their family or a startup for their business. Like, and you have to, like, that kind of seeing beyond the initial is the objective to me with hardship and the struggles in life. If you can see beyond the initial struggle to the potential with the lessons that you can learn in that struggle, then you can learn so much. But like, you never know where those lessons are going to come from. And you never know what those hard times are going to be. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, I used to think I was Mr. Invincible. Not, obviously, I know I'm only human, we all are. But you have that, well, I had that kind of about me, that I would live forever just, I'm John. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those ones, but you get humbled, and sometimes the simplest of things can really crumble you. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a tough guy or anything like that. I'd say I'm quite stoic or quite strong silent type. And I keep my battles to myself. I'll deal with it internally, and then once I've solved it, then I'll talk about it or whatever else. But sometimes life is out of your control. And one of the hardest times for me, I would have never have known it, but was when my daughter was born. So she was born in the height of COVID, and the first couple of weeks she was in intensive care because her oxygen was low and she had pneumonia when she was born, so she just needed a bit of time to strengthen up and everything to kick in. She ended up obviously coming out and being perfectly fine, but because it was the height of COVID and she was in the intensive care unit, we only had allotted kind of times that we could go to see her. So it was 6 hours a day and you could only go in once. So if you went in once and it was only for 3 hours, you couldn't go back in later on that day. And one day we had to leave early, I had work, and I was like, I had to rush out of there, and I didn't get enough time with her. Like, she's my newborn daughter. She was only a couple of days or maybe a week old at this point. I was like, I haven't had enough time with her. So at the time I was a personal trainer, so I was only working an hour here, hour there. So I had a very flexible schedule. So within, say, 2, 3 hours, I was free again, and I was like, I want to see my daughter, like. And I phoned the hospital and I basically begged and pleaded with them to if I could come back. But because this was in the height of the pandemic, obviously she's in a hospital, there's other young babies around. They wouldn't let me come back up the hospital, they wouldn't let me on the ward. And I just sat there after I got off the phone and I cried. And anybody that knows me knows that's probably a fairly rare thing. I'm not somebody that cries. To me, crying's quite irritating. It's just me. I don't like repetitive sound, and to hear that come from myself, that sobbing and crying, it's irritating. So it's not often that I do it. And after kind of being told I couldn't go and see my daughter, and knowing that if I tried to break those rules, I would not only potentially be putting her in jeopardy, but other people's children. So it was beyond my control that I could just go see my daughter. It was more than just mine and her health at risk. There was other people's children's health at risk, which I had to be responsible in that moment and understand that I had to wait 24 hours before I could see my daughter. But for me, at the time, that was the hardest thing I'd been through in such a long time, that it broke me to the point where I cried. And it had probably been about 10 years or so since I'd cried. Like, genuinely, tears coming out my face, blubbering like a baby. Like, and it was simply because they told me no, that I couldn't see her. And it broke me. Now, nobody physically hurt me. I was still healthy. She was still healthy. Everything was still okay in life overall. But just dealing with that at that time was incredibly hard for me. And to this day, it's one of the hardest things I've been through. Like, that knowing that you can't see somebody and it's for their safety and your safety and the safety of others, like, that's a very hard place to be, especially in the terms of having a baby. Like, she was new to the world and I couldn't wait to meet her. Sorry, sweat rag break. Like, I couldn't wait to meet her, but it was one of those ones where it was like, yeah, that I couldn't have anticipated that would be something that I'd find so difficult and so heart-wrenching. But that just goes to show you, even when things are okay, like I say, like everything else was fine, but it was simply the fact that I was told no, that I could see no to see my daughter, that I've really felt terrible. Like, I'm trying to use friendly words, but I really didn't feel good about it. And it shook me to my core, just not being able to see her at that time. Like I say, she was days, a week maximum old, and I couldn't spend more time with her. But yeah, so that's one of the hardest things I've been through. And you know what? Like, I really am glad that now that kind of story is immortalized, not just for myself, but for her as well. And hopefully that kind of helps to communicate how much of an impact that having a child can have on you. Like, just days into my life, and just the thought of being denied, well, not the thought, but just the fact of being denied seeing her brought, at the time, like 125 kilo lump of grumpy man meat to a blubbering mess. Like, and it was for somebody that was 6'6", just cute as a button, just in her little incubator, just waiting for the next time to see me. Like, But I was heartbroken, just the fact that they told me no, that I couldn't see her. Um, but yeah, sorry, I get caught up talking about her sometimes. But yeah, so the hardest thing you've been through, like to me, that in that time I learned how much she meant to me and how much she was going to mean to me going forward. And I mean, I was wrong. She had an even greater impact on me than I could have even predicted at that point. And she goes on to surprise me. But it comes with its hard times. Anytime your child gets ill or they're not quite right or they fall and they hurt themselves, you worry and this, that. I remember when another time she got ill and straight away you were sleeping at the hospital with them and just holding their hand through the night. Like there's there's always going to be the hard times, but they never last. Like in those moments, I just remind myself that, like, for the time that I couldn't see her, quite frankly, I went to sleep and I wished the time away and tried to rush to the next time I could see her. And I was up there first thing the next morning. But that was my way of dealing with it. I see a way to solve the problem, and it was, well, if I want time to go faster so I can see her, go to sleep. And then the next day we'll be here. But I'm not advising to do that, by the way. I'm just being honest about how I dealt with it at the time. Sorry, it's really hot in here and I'm going to be really sweaty for this episode, but I really like the sentiment of this story and what it means and having this kind of story immortalized. So however it comes out, it's more than likely going to ride. But yeah, the hard times are always going to come. And to get off topic off a little one, like even financial times, like I've had times where when I was a personal trainer and I was running my own business and it's all going well at one point and then COVID hits or a couple of regular clients lose their job or they move or they don't need training anymore, they have injuries. You have that constant ebb and flow and business goes up, business goes down. There's always going to be the ebb and flow in life. So whenever you go through that, just try to remind yourself it's temporary. There's a lot that's gonna feel like it's never ending. Like that time when I couldn't see my daughter, it felt like tomorrow was never gonna come. And I couldn't wait to see her again. But it's inevitable that time will pass. It's inevitable that I was gonna see her. That when you're broke, as long as you're being wise about your money and you act on it, there's times where you won't be broke. Like the bad times never last, especially if you take action. So just try to push through and remember that they're not permanent. Good times are going to come, bad times are going to come. Enjoy the good times and learn from the bad times. Try not to be too hard on yourself in the process. I'm going to leave it there for this episode because it's really hot in here. But I really appreciate everybody that's following along so far, and hopefully I can build something better. I'm going to hopefully push this out after next episode. Once I've got 10 kind of blocked in, I'm going to push it out into kind of more platforms and try to build something a little bit bigger, promote it a little bit more. But hopefully I'm progressing and the level of the content's progressing and the way that I convey myself is progressing. And thank you to everybody that's following along so far. Today's seed is going to be try to go easy on yourself. It's easy when things are hard to put all the pressure on yourself. And don't get me wrong, I am somebody that believes the buck stops with you when it comes to your life. But there is a time that you've got to take your foot off the gas and give yourself a little bit of time to recover Make your world smaller, simplify things before then building up again. If you're going through hard times and things are hard and complicated and you're struggling, the easiest way to cope with it is to make your world small and simplify things and slow down. Try to take the pressure off yourself rather than doubling down on the pressure and going even harder on yourself. We're all just trying out here. Everybody's trying to figure this out, as much as they may not want to admit it. So try, give yourself a pat on the back every once in a while and give yourself a break here and there when you need it. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.